decided, full day you guys have been through data center, the technology, the AI evolution, the chips and many other conversations. But as the capacity kind of explodes, where is the capital coming from? So I thought these C-suite guys and a capital provider could give us some perspective when we are adding about 250 to 270 megawatts practically every year. That constitutes to what? It will be about 40 crores per megawatt, give or take? 40 crores of capex, right? So that's an exponential growth, and we still remain under-penetrated as a market. So with that, I'll start the panel. I'm Gautam Saraf. I'm from Cushman and Wakefield. Been with the firm for almost 20 odd years. Lead the data center practice amongst other responsibilities within Cushman. May I just ask for one small line of introduction, sir, before we start? And I could do the honors, but it would be good if you could.
Okay, thanks Gautam. Thank you W.Media for having me on this panel. I am Bimal Khandelwal, Chief Executive Officer for W.Media. I have been in the organization for 9 years now, and all in all, I'm a finance guy working in telecom all my life, and here I am today.
Hi, I'm Nikhil, and Gautam, thank you so much for calling me over and with such august company here. I'm part of Blackstone team, and I've been with the firm for more than 11 years now, and I lead the data center investment practice here in India.
Good evening, and good to see at 4:30 we still have an audience. That means it's an interesting topic. Gautam, thank you for leading this, and thank you W.Media for having us here. My name is Surajit Chatterjee. I head CapitaLand investment for the data center practice. CapitaLand started data center as a business unit in 2019, and we've grown substantially in the last 4 to 5 years. And looking to grow more focus, I think we were consciously picked up as a panelist by Gautam, looking at the challenges what we're facing on day to day, but it will be a good, interesting session on. Good to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Surajit. Let me start with you. Like you said, you've done finance most or rather all of your life, and you would understand this better and could explain it to the audience. With the infrastructure status that it got granted, how do you see credit and capital availability? When the investors give in the money, what's the risk parameter? What's the kind of risk mitigation plan that you submit when you do that? Just some perspective of availability of capital as infrastructure in the form of debt or equity.
Okay, so there are two parts of the question, Gautam. First is the credit availability. Let me just take that forward. The banks and the financial institutions, they are bullish on the data center industry. And on the backdrop of the demand and the long-term growth trajectory that is being seen, capital availability is not a concern. Now, what is important is to have a balanced view around the capital that is being drawn by the players in terms of cost, in terms of risk, the tenure, and the repayment cycle. Coming to the risk assessment and the security of the overall data center industry, there are a couple of factors around it. The key one is the demand trajectory growth. Now, the pricing around it. Now, this is what defines the overall risk parameters and the sales velocity, the overall build-up cost, and the overall ramp-up of the overall capacity. That is what defines the overall risk. Hence, the concern is not around the availability of the capital. It's basically the build-out and the demand trajectory, and the build-out and the overall ramp-up of the capacity is what defines the availability of the capital.
This capital from a cover is generally the secured revenue that you have. That's the security that a institution would get when they give you money.
Yeah, that's there, and also the assets which are there. So essentially, the way we have seen the capacity is more or less committed before it gets built. There are pre-commitments which are there. So essentially, the risk is reduced to that extent. So on the backdrop of the huge demand, I think the risk is a little reduced. The key is how quickly or how fast we do the build, and the quality of the build is equally important. As we initially said, the cost of the build currently comes to around 40 crores. Now, data center projects by itself, they take around 30 to 36 months to build up fully. The delays around it can cause the overall impact in the IRRs that we are looking at. And that's one of the risks which is there, which one has to manage it rightfully.
I will continue on the risk parameters from regulatory to the delays that you're talking about, or power availability. Yeah, let me bring in Surajit. Surajit, what are the sources of revenue in terms of when you look at data centers? Who are your customers?
Overall, the market, if you see, and I completely echo to what Bimal said, approximately 70% revenue is driven by hyperscalers. Let's accept the fact now that that's what it is. Around 30% is enterprises. There's an off-take pattern being seen. Bimal said, greenfield project in India, 30 to 32 months of build. Provided you get the approvals on time. And that's a funny thing, some are getting, some are not getting for various reasons. Investors' risk appetite has reduced, but they prefer a pre-commit. A market which was pre-COVID 350 megawatts to a current 1.2, I think the maturity has come in. Investors have to see a different and wear a different hat now. Every might requirement cannot be, or a demand cannot be a pre-commit. But we have to start somewhere speculative because there is a time factor. And that speculation has to have that maturity angle to look at. So coming back to your question, I think this is how the trend is being looked. Hyperscalers have certain pattern. 6 years back, when you used to walk into an hyperscaler, you said you're going to acquire a land. And you were one of those people who were accompanying at point of time saying that yes, we are very close, you're going to acquire and then you're going to secure approvals, power, so and so forth. Let's start. Maybe they will. Today there's no way. They come back and tell you, we want to come and see, have you touched 40% of your development on potential? With the required power in place, good, now come and talk. So I think the trend is changing. I think operators, private equity, as we deal with more of them on a very continuous basis, the entire ecosystem has to look differently. But that's predominantly where the revenue stands today.
That's interesting, and let me bring in Nikhil here because what Surajit says is that factually correct that there was a time when a lot of these operators came to a firm like yours and they said, look, we'll acquire this and we have a soft commitment from hyperscaler and we need you to fund $500 million to. So, what are the criteria and parameters do you look at it now versus when you look at it then?
Those were good days. We could sort of start talking about our land and we can land up a customer and that's how the world would be. I think it's a function of how the requirements are changing. Right? Let's just kind of zoom out for a moment. Let's look at the animal we are dealing with. If you look at the US market, you have to go back almost 150 years back to find a precedent which could be as big a trend as artificial intelligence. Right? US is a $30 trillion economy. It's very difficult for a sector to show up as percentage of GDP. Artificial intelligence, data center is one of them. We are celebrating the growth that we have seen in the last 4 years. We are more than a gigawatt of a market now. But if you look at US as a context, you can very well have single leases which are in excess of a gigawatt and at times being negotiated in a way that could be multi-gigawatts over a period of time. As the nature of the market is kind of changing, the fabric of the investment, the way you kind of approach something also changes. It's one thing to kind of commit like $100 million on something which is speculative versus banking like $10 million or something else, right? It's also very important to look at what we have got. We are one of the cheapest to build here in India. We are one of the cheapest to operate. We are one of the largest source of data, the users. You can just keep naming them the way you would want, and you will be up there in the list. I think if you go to most parts of the world, you are asking about three things. You ask 30, the answer would still be power. That's not the case with India, right? We very routinely keep adding 50, 20 gigawatts here and there, and to just get power is not such a big problem. The problem is in the certainty, the reliability. Can I get it in 12 months' time, 24 months' time? Do I have a regulator as a counterparty who's assuring me that? Because that's what happens in most of the parts of the world. And it's a globally competitive industry. What gets built in the US can be built in Australia, can be built here. So that's definitely one of the things. Secondly, I would say we are generally somewhat land constrained in the places where we would want to be, and I think that's something I would definitely highlight to you, and something that you guys need to do more on. Because when people are when the hyperscalers are coming, they're not coming for 30, they're coming for 30, and whether that could be 300 or whatever. Right? So I think those are the two things I would highlight for.
Yeah, and subject will come to. It's difficult to generate in this country, but yes, with preference being in one or two specific markets. But we'll get to that. But also again, critical risk, whether it's geopolitical power, like you said, a short power, some other resources that you feel which could derail the entire project, and it has happened in the past, right? Some DCs have, we're kind of seeing sort of consolidation partly. Some existing operators have exited the country, and some are up for sale, as we know. So, what are the most critical risks that you face, given the kind of capital you committed to this?
So consolidation, Gautam, I think we'll have to wait for a year or so. One or two DC players for sure have got into new partners in their platform. That's good. I think that gives a might to them to take to the next level. Now, coming to the key challenges, every industry has their own set of challenges. The good thing is we are seeing huge demand as far as DC industry is concerned. So on the backdrop of that, and to catch up to the demand, I think the constraints or the challenges are there from the supply side, right? It's a good problem, but we need to solve it. The first one, if I may say so, is the speed to market, right? As Surajit, right? Yeah. As Surajit said, while it takes, I also said it, 30 to 36 months is what it takes to deliver a DC building. Now, subject to we have the approvals, right? But you look at the way the demand is coming. The customers are clearly having options to choose from the inventory which is available in the market, and looking to the timelines that they have for the demand, they pick and choose and run with the DC player. So clearly speed to market is one of the biggest challenge that we all are working around, and at SPV GDC, what we have done is we have tried to build different kinds of inventory in various campuses that we have in different cities, and try to catch up to the demand timelines of the customer. So that's first of the challenges. Second, with so much of demand coming in, supply chain constraints have been there. One is because of the COVID, because of this, what you call, geopolitical issues that we have been facing. Supply chain for sure has been impacted. but I think India, we are little safe from a geopolitical issues that we have faced. But what's impacting is the overall demand, the supply from the OEMs with regard to the equipments. That's the challenge we have. Second biggest challenge is the availability of a general contractor, GCs, who for sure there is a dearth of good general contractors from a civil build and from a MEP build as well. I see few of the GCs clearly ramping up to deliver to the quality of the data center requirements. So that's the second challenge, supply chain constraint. The third and the most important is the availability of the skilled workforce. Right? We are what, let's say, we have been there in the industry for 2 decades, but we have just grown over, let's say, 5 years, over last 5 years. But you look at the availability of the workforce. I don't think we have a skilled workforce to firstly build the capacities that we have been talking about. The industry is poaching within the players, so that's there. Over and above the build workforce, you look at the, let's say 5 years hence, we all say we would be 4.5 megawatt or 4.5 gigawatt or 5 gigawatt of capacity as an industry. Do we have enough of operations team to run the DCs that we are talking about? Answer is no. We are struggling because while we are committed to huge capacities and the SLAs to the customer, I think clearly the focus has to be to build skilled workforce to take care of the overall operations of the capacity 5 years hence. If 5 gigawatt is what we all are talking about, we need to be investing in the workforce now. So these are the 3 key challenges over and above other challenges which are there, which I am sure will steer it right.
Interesting. So, Surajit, would then plug and play work? You know, India's DC policy talks about plug and play data centers closer to IT park and industrial hubs. Industrial hub because there is abundant power. Generally, you get it in industrial corridors. Would that attract operators, hyperscalers to set it up with those incentives being given?
I think yes. I myself is an example. Out of 4 assets what we are building, which is roughly about 240, 250 megawatts. 2 of my assets are in my own IT parks. Why I went? Very clear reason. Own land, partial approval, power in place. Yes, maybe the capacity was small. I think the time has come for hybrid approach. To Bimal's point, I am this year the co-chairman of ASSOCHAM, pushing a lot to the government in terms of policy. We are pushing the national data center policy very hard to be implemented. What it will cover? It will cover land regulations, it will cover power, durability. It will have a very clear policy on the renewable in terms of going forward. But the hybrid, because the demand is seen sudden. You are all aware that workloads have started moving from South Asia to India. How come the demand is increasing suddenly? Workloads are being seen move. We are seeing Johor, we are seeing Singapore, we are seeing now Indonesia belt. You know. So I think with this, capacities need to grow. Hyperscalers want scale, hyperscalers want campus kind of a setup. But within that, we need to find this sort of a mix and match to continue to give those capacities to the customers.
These plug and play that you spoke about in your IT parks, most customers would be enterprise, I would say, because these are...
We have even hyperscalers who are coming in for POP locations. Wow. So typically, let's say I'm building one building of, let's say, 40 odd megawatts, G+7. So a couple of floors are with POPs, couple of floors are with banks, couple of floors in multi-tenant environment. But that gives speed to the market. So if you are addressing a POP location, it is typically a requirement of, let's say, 3 to 4 megawatts, you can fulfill that. Instead of a tower which I am delivered now in Mumbai, which is 34 megawatt, one single tower. So you see the market exists for both.
So the hybrid would possibly be...
Possibly, yes.
Nikhil, you did mention it in your conversation that India has availability of power, which is where Europe and a lot of developed economies are struggling today. cost of construction is significantly cheaper when we talk about the same 1 megawatt being developed in 40 crores per megawatt kind of a situation. Do you see India becoming the Southeast Asia hub? There are inherent challenges in Singapore, with there was an embargo at some point in time, Indonesia, government controls Malaysia, things like that. So any thoughts on that?
So, for sure, right? India is a natural opportunity. It makes a ton of economic sense because when the demand has to be served onshore, it's most natural to build that capacity here because it travels less, it costs you lesser, and it's far more efficient, right? But it's not a straight, it's not a one-man race, it's a competition because if you look at, for example, Johor, which was a market pretty much non-existent 5 years back. Today it's 500 megawatts, you have every hyperscaler there, right? How that has been achieved? It's been achieved through policy interventions, through single window clearances, expedited access to power, and so on and so forth, right? So I think as India, we have a right to win, but at the same time, we are in a competitive environment rather than just being an absolute sort of a winner and this.
Possibly, I think that time. But one last question to each one of you. Then you crystal gaze it 5 years from now. One theme that would be of interest to you. Because 50, 20 years ago, data center is what industrial asset class was today. We do see it becoming mainstream probably in the next 3 to 5 years. Any theme you start, Surajit?
No, I propose this year to change the name of the asset class called data center. I've asked them to call it digital infrastructure. There's a purpose behind that. I think we're all ready. Okay. I think to what my colleagues said, policy framework, investments are coming in, risks are getting reduced. We need to have the infrastructure ready. We will continue to have those on-ground challenges, but I think work is parallelly happening and we'll see. But I think the next 5 years has a tremendous potential. I was sitting with some ministry and they were saying that why don't you create a data center park? I give you a 400-acre land. I give you 2 substations of 400 kV, both sides. I think that's the thought. I know we're running out of time. I'm put off the mic still. Thank you. So I think that's obviously. And I keep telling to the organizers here, I think this ecosystem also, the partner ecosystem also has to now mature. The supply ecosystem has to improve a lot. It has to local manufacture. If you have to deliver an asset in, let's say, 70 as expected, everybody.
One theme, Nikhil, digital infrastructure.
So I would say the macro behind all of this is digitization, right? When you look at iCloud, storage of online photographs, SaaS ventures, cloud, now AI, the underlying theme is it has become more economical and technologically feasible to bring a lot of compute in single place, right? The way we, as Blackstone see data centers, we feel it's a physical embodiment of artificial intelligence. Tomorrow it could be a different form of digitalization, but a data center as a theme is going to stay relevant for those newer technological innovations which keep happening. So my feel is the nature of demand will keep changing, GPUs will go out, TPUs will come in, something else will be there, but you will need a physical place where all that can happen at that time.
Just to add quickly, I think we are already on that journey. Today, India is implementing and adopting, let's say, liquid cooling as a technology. We were there 1.5, 2 years back? No. We have talent. We have a pressure on talent to grow this, but today we have. This adoption is also a key for our growth. So-called we understand the subject. Today a large hyperscaler is trusted to deploy those architectures in the country. I think that's what we need to focus on.
So I would agree with Surajit, and second, that the name of the industry has to change, Surajit. I will also take it forward in different forums that I also get into. That's first thing. Very, very important. Secondly, let me reiterate what Surajit raised. I think while I highlighted around the workforce, let's understand few of the biggest liquid cooling setup installations, Gautam, I can say has been in India much ahead of any other Asian countries. And they are bigger installations, big installations. So clearly we are ahead as far as the overall data center roadmap is concerned. But if, and currently we are not fighting within the DC player in India. We are fighting for the capacities which can go to Johor and other countries. Now, if we have the right quality of asset and on time, trust me, all the demands clearly will land up to India for the reasons which Nikhil highlighted: lower cost, right, right operations to take it forward. Power again, green power, and cost of the power also being low. So everything is to our side. It's just that we need to build on time to ensure that the demand should land up to India rather than other countries. So from my perspective, the themes that I would want to all of us to focus, and also the government machinery to help us get us, is clearly basics. Get the right size land available to the whosoever wants to build the asset. Get the land as quick as possible, duly supported by power, and that too green power.
We should direct this question to actually now to Gautam, because he should be made custodian of this, to ensure that land and infrastructure is already there.
I think the time is up.
So clearly, again, let's get to the basics, right? And I'm sure government machinery is working towards it. We have been interacting with various governments, and we will get there. 5 gigawatt in let's say next 5 years, for sure we are there. And maybe
I think quite insightful. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. And you're right, the government is very proactive in growing this segment industry, whether it's infra, whether it's technology, whether it's data center as a real estate, whichever quality of asset you qualify it as. And the future looks quite promising with all the alternatives of energy that we're also looking at deploying into the asset class. So with that, unfortunately, we don't have time for questions, but in case you find the panelists in the crowd later, you can definitely catch them. Thank you very much. We will make it.